deep under the city, where sunlight never touched the ground, there was a cold, forgotten lab. It was full of dust, old machines, and broken glass tubes. But one chamber still worked. Inside it floated a single alien hand. Not just any hand. Its skin glowed faintly silver, with strange blue veins running across it like tiny rivers of light. Symbols no human language could read were carved into its skin. Nobody knew what those symbols meant. Some scientists thought they were battle marks. Others said they were warnings. But to most people, the hand was only one thing valuable. The war had ended 5 years ago. Millions had died. Many alien ships had crashed on Earth during the fighting. The hand was all that was left of one of those aliens. They called it Specimen 47. The scientists wanted to sell it. They didn't care who bought it, the military, a rich collector, maybe even another alien race. Whoever paid the most. But one man in the lab saw it differently. His name was Mark. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a soldier. He was only the janitor. Every night, after everyone left, Mark came to clean the floors, empty trash bins, mop the hallways. Nobody paid attention to him. To them, he was invisible. But Mark saw everything. He saw how the scientists laughed when the hand twitched as if it were alive. He saw how cold the lab was, how silent. He saw how no one ever spoke to the hand, how no one ever wondered who it belonged to. Mark wondered. Sometimes, when his work was done, he stood near the chamber and whispered softly, "Hey, can you hear me?" he would ask. "You holding on in there?" Of course, there was never an answer. But for some reason, Mark kept talking. Maybe because the hand wasn't the only lonely thing in the room. Then came the storm. Lightning flashed over the city. Thunder shook the ground. The scientists had left early, not wanting to be stuck in the lab during the power cuts. Only Mark stayed. He was mopping the hallway when he heard a sound. A low hum, like a machine waking from sleep. He walked toward the noise. Came from the chamber. The blue glow around the hand grew brighter. Lines of light spread across the glass, forming strange patterns. Mark dropped his mop. "What the?" he whispered. Before his eyes, the hand moved. Not the weak twitch he had seen before. This time it was different. It flexed its fingers slowly, like someone waking from a long dream. And then something impossible happened. From the wrist, thin streams of glowing liquid poured out, shaping themselves into bones, muscles, and skin. Slowly, painfully, a whole arm began to form. Mark stepped closer, his heart pounding. No way. No way this is real. But it was. The regeneration system had activated on its own. He didn't know how. Maybe the storm, maybe the alien technology hidden inside the hand itself. But it was building a body from nothing. An hour passed. Mark didn't move. The arm became shoulders. The shoulders became a chest, a neck, a head. Bit by bit, a person was forming inside the glass chamber. She was young. Her skin had a soft silver glow. Her hair was dark and floated in the blue liquid like smoke. Mark couldn't look away. Finally, her eyes opened, not fully, just a faint flicker. But they were there. And in that moment, Mark realized he wasn't watching a machine. He was watching someone come back to life. The chamber hissed. Steam filled the room as the glass door slid open. She collapsed forward. Mark jumped, catching her before she hit the floor. She was warm, shaking, breathing fast like someone running from a nightmare. Her eyes opened again, this time properly. The first thing she saw was a man in a gray janitor uniform, holding her like she was the most fragile thing in the world. His hands trembled, but his eyes were kind. He swallowed hard. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now." She didn't understand the words. She didn't even know who she was. But somehow, she trusted him. Far above, the storm raged on. The scientists were gone. The city slept. And deep underground, in a place no one cared about, a girl who had been nothing but a hand just hours ago took her first breath. The first face she saw was not a soldier, not a scientist, not a king. It was a janitor. And nothing in her life or his would ever be the same again. The storm outside grew worse as the night went on. Rain crashed against the roof far above, But deep underground in the secret lab, another storm had started. One made of light, steam, and the slow heartbeat of a girl who had just come back to life. Mark still held her, unsure what to do. She was trembling in his arms like a leaf in the wind. Her skin was strange, smooth, warm, yet glowing faintly like silver metal under her flesh. She looked up at him with wide, confused eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. What could he even say? Welcome back from the dead? Finally, he whispered, "It's okay. You're safe." She blinked slowly, like she didn't understand the words but felt the meaning. Mark gently placed her on a bench near the chamber. She was weak, her legs shaking as if they had never been used before, which, he realized, was true. The machine had rebuilt her body, but not her strength. Her hands gripped the bench tightly, like a child scared of falling. Mark backed up slowly. I'll get you something," he said softly, though he didn't know if she understood. He grabbed an old blanket from the corner and wrapped it around her shoulders. For a long moment, the only sound was the storm outside and her soft, uneven breathing. Then she spoke. One word. "Where?" Her voice cracked like broken glass. Mark froze. The word was small, unsure, but it was a word. You can talk?" he asked. She tilted her head, confused. Her eyes searched his face as if trying to read his mind. "Where? She tried again, her voice rough and halting. Mark understood. "Where are you?" "You're on Earth. Safe, I think." He wasn't even sure about the last part himself. She touched her face slowly, like someone touching skin for the first time. Then her hands moved to her chest, her legs, her arms. Like she couldn't believe they were real. Mark realized something else. She had no idea who she was. Far away in the main part of the lab, alarms blinked faintly on silent screens. The regeneration machine had sent signals to the central system when it activated. Someone would see those signals soon. And when they came, Mark wasn't sure what they would do to her. He remembered the scientists talking before they left. "We finish the body," one had said. "Then we sell it." "She's not a she," another laughed. "It's an asset, a weapon. If it moves, it kills. Someone will pay well for it." Mark looked at the girl now, shaking, lost, scared. She didn't look like a weapon. She looked like someone who had been through hell. "You need food," Mark said softly. He wasn't sure what aliens ate, but the vending machine upstairs had sandwiches. He turned toward the door, then stopped. She had grabbed his sleeve. Her grip was weak, but her eyes begged him not to leave. Mark hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll stay." He pulled up a chair and sat a few feet away. She watched him like a wild animal unsure if it should run or stay. After a while, she spoke again. "Name?" she asked, the word shaky. "Mark," he said. He pointed at himself. "Mark." She blinked, then pointed at herself, waiting. Mark thought for a moment. "I don't know your name," he admitted softly. "They didn't tell me." She frowned slightly, as if confused by that. Hours passed. She tried standing again, nearly falling before Mark caught her. Her legs trembled like she was learning to walk for the first time. "You need rest," Mark said, helping her sit again. But even as she sat, he noticed something strange. Her skin, the glowing lines under it, pulsed faintly, like circuits carrying energy. They grew brighter every time she moved, as if her body was still changing. And when she closed her eyes for a moment, one of the lab screens lit up by itself. Mark stared at it. He didn't touch anything. Neither did she. But the screen showed strange alien symbols, glowing like the ones on her skin. Mark felt a chill. Whoever she wasn't just alive. She was connected to something bigger. Outside the lab, in the dark hallways, footsteps echoed. The scientists had returned early. Mark's heart jumped. If they saw her awake, saw her alive, they would take her, sell her, maybe kill her if she was too much trouble. He looked at the girl. She looked back, sensing the danger from his face even if she didn't understand the words. For the first time, Mark realized he would have to make a choice. Save her, or let them take her. And deep down, he knew he had already chosen. The heavy footsteps in the hallway grew louder. Mark froze. He looked at the door, then at the girl sitting on the bench, wrapped in the blanket like a child hiding from the world. She didn't understand what was happening, but she could feel it. Danger was coming. Mark whispered quickly, "Stay quiet. Don't move." The girl tilted her head, confused. The lab door opened with a sharp hiss. 2 scientists walked in, holding tablets and speaking fast. "The system logs showed regeneration finished early," one said. "We need to check if the specimen is." Then he saw her. The girl sat on the bench, weak but alive, her silver skin faintly glowing under the lab lights. The man froze mid-step. "It's awake," he whispered. The other scientist's eyes widened. "Already? That shouldn't be possible." They both stared like they had just found gold. Mark stepped in front of the girl without thinking. "She just woke up. She's not ready for." "Move," one scientist snapped. "It's not your job to talk. You're just the janitor." Mark clenched his fists but didn't move aside. The girl behind him gripped the blanket tightly, sensing the tension. "She's weak," Mark said. "She needs rest. Food. Not whatever you're planning." The first scientist smirked coldly. "What we're planning will make us rich. That thing is worth more than your entire life, janitor. Step aside." The girl didn't understand their words, but she saw their faces, their greedy eyes, their sharp smiles. She shrank back, shaking her head slowly, as if her body remembered fear even if her mind didn't. Then she spoke. One broken word. "No!" The scientists froze. Mark turned. She had spoken. Her voice was rough, halting like someone learning to talk for the first time. But the meaning was clear. "No," she said again, louder this time. The scientists looked at each other. One of them frowned. "It can talk already?" "It's intelligent," the other said. "Good. That'll raise its value." Mark felt sick hearing them talk like that, like she was just a machine. The girl looked at Mark, her silver eyes wide. She said another word, slowly, like she was pulling it from deep inside her memory. "Name yours." Mark blinked, then nodded. "Mark," he said softly. He pointed at himself. "Mark." She pointed weakly at her own chest. Mark hesitated. I don't know your name," he admitted. She tilted her head, confused. One of the scientists chuckled darkly. "It doesn't have a name. It doesn't need one. It's a specimen." The girl frowned slightly. Her eyes moved from the scientists back to Mark. And for the first time, Mark saw something in those eyes. Not fear. Not confusion. Anger. The scientists moved closer with their tablets. Mark stepped in front of them again. "Back off. She just came alive. At least give her time." "Move," one snapped. But before Mark could answer, the lights flickered. All the screens in the lab lit up with strange alien symbols. The scientists jumped back, startled. "What's happening?" one shouted. Mark turned. The girl was standing now, though weakly, her hand raised slightly toward the ceiling. The symbols on her skin glowed brighter. "She's interfacing with the system," one scientist whispered in shock. "Direct neural link? This is impossible." The other stared at the screens. "She's controlling it." The girl's breathing was heavy. The machines flickered again, showing images, alien cities, burning ships, battles in space. Mark stared at the images. He didn't understand them fully, but he understood one thing. This girl had seen war. Maybe lived through it. Maybe died in it. Suddenly, the lights went dark. The lab doors slammed shut by themselves. Alarms blared. The scientists panicked, hitting buttons on their tablets. "Security. Security now." Mark moved toward the girl. "Hey, stop. They'll come after you." She looked at him. For the first time, words came out clearly, though broken. "They kill my people." Mark froze. She pointed at the screens showing burning alien cities. "They kill all." The scientists stopped, stunned. "Is she saying what I think?" one began. But before he could finish, the doors burst open. Armed guards rushed in, weapons ready. Mark's heart pounded. The girl shrank back behind him, trembling. She didn't understand everything, but she understood guns. The lead guard pointed. Orders are to take the specimen alive. Move aside. Mark stood frozen. He knew what would happen if they took her. She wouldn't be treated like a person. She would be caged, sold, used. The girl whispered softly behind him. Please, no cage. Mark felt something burn in his chest. Anger. He looked at the guards, then at the girl, and in that moment he made a choice. He grabbed her hand and ran. The alarms screamed across the underground lab. Red lights flashed like angry eyes on the walls. Armed guards shouted orders as Mark pulled the alien girl through the narrow hallways. Stop them! A voice barked behind. Mark didn't stop. He couldn't. The girl's steps were weak, shaky, but she ran because he pulled her. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't even know his name fully yet. But she understood one thing. If those men caught her, she would never see the sky. They would lock her away, sell her, maybe kill her. She wouldn't let that happen. Mark dragged her toward the maintenance tunnels. He knew these halls better than anyone. He had cleaned them for years. Every corner, every broken vent, every rusty door, he knew all of it. Come on this way, he said, panting. The girl followed silently, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Behind them, heavy boots echoed. The guards were getting closer. Stop! One shouted. You can't hide. But Mark didn't slow down. They reached a locked metal door. Mark punched a code into the panel. The door slid open with a creak. Inside was darkness. Old pipes. Leaking water. The forgotten part of the lab no one used anymore. Mark shut the door behind them. The hallway ahead was narrow and smelled like rust and mold. The girl looked around nervously. Safe here? She asked softly, her voice rough. For now, Mark said, breathing hard. He led her deeper into the dark. The alarms were faint here. Only dripping water and distant thunder filled the silence. After a long walk, they stopped inside an old storage room. Mark found an old blanket and some dusty crates to sit on. The girl sat quietly, wrapping the blanket around herself. Mark finally spoke. They're going to search the whole place. We can't stay here long. She nodded slowly but said nothing. Mark looked at her closely. The faint glow under her skin was still there. Her face was young but tired, like someone who had seen too much. Who are you? He asked softly. She looked up at him. For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she spoke. Last of my people. Mark froze. Last. She nodded. Her voice was broken, but the words were clear enough. They came. Burned cities. Killed all. I fight. Then nothing. Mark realized what she meant. She had fought in the war. She had died or almost died, and the lab had rebuilt her from what little was left. From only a hand. He couldn't imagine that. The girl touched the floor lightly. Strange glowing symbols spread from her fingertips like roots across the metal. Mark stared. What are you doing? Calling, she whispered. Calling who? My ship. Maybe gone, maybe come. Mark didn't understand all of it, but he understood one thing. She was trying to reach someone. Those guards, Mark said. They'll come here soon. We have to keep moving. The girl shook her head slowly. No, she said. They want me, not you. Leave me. Mark frowned. Not happening. I'm not leaving you. Why? She asked softly. Because you're not a thing for them to sell, Mark said. You're you. She blinked, like no one had said that to her before. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the tunnel outside. Mark cursed under his breath. They're here. The girl stood slowly, her weak body trembling, but her eyes glowing brighter now. The door burst open. 2 guards stepped in with rifles. Don't move, one shouted. Mark raised his hands slowly, standing in front of the girl. She's not going with you, he said, his voice shaking. The guard laughed coldly. You think you can stop us? You're a janitor. Nothing more. The girl stepped forward. Her glowing eyes locked on the guards. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. The rifles in the guard's hands sparked, overheated, and then died completely. "What the?" one shouted, dropping his weapon. The girl raised her hand slowly. Strange symbols burned bright on the walls. The ground shook faintly. The guards backed away in fear. "She's controlling the systems." Mark stared in shock. She wasn't just some survivor. She was something more, something powerful. The guards turned and ran, shouting into their radios for backup. The girl fell to her knees, breathing hard. Mark caught her before she hit the floor. "Hey, you okay?" She nodded weakly. "Too weak. Power low." Mark wrapped the blanket tighter around her. "Then we find a way out before they come back." She looked at him, eyes tired but burning with determination. "They want me," she whispered, "because secret inside me." Mark frowned. "What secret?" She met his eyes. "Map," she said softly, "to the last weapon of my people." Mark froze. Now he understood why they wanted her alive. The underground lab was no longer quiet. Red lights flashed through every hallway. Sirens screamed like angry voices. Dozens of guards searched room after room, their boots shaking the metal floor. The scientists followed behind, shouting orders. But Mark and the alien girl were still hiding in the abandoned storage room. She sat on the cold floor, her blanket wrapped tightly around her trembling shoulders. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Mark crouched near the broken door, peeking through a crack. He could hear the soldiers getting closer. "They will find us," the girl whispered softly. "Not if I get us out first," Mark said, his voice low but firm. She looked at him strangely. "Why you help me?" Mark turned to her. "Because you're alive. Because they want to use you like a thing and you're not a thing. You're someone." The girl stared at him for a long moment, like his words were something new, something she hadn't heard before. Suddenly, the loudspeaker above crackled to life. "Attention all units," a cold voice said. "Specimen 47 must be taken alive. The janitor assisting her is expendable." Mark felt his stomach twist. The girl looked at him, confused. What?" Mark forced a smile. "Means they don't like me very much." She tilted her head slowly. "You stay. Safe. I go." Mark shook his head. "Not happening. We're leaving together." He helped her stand. She was still weak, but she tried to walk. Her body was shaking, but there was fire in her eyes now. Mark grabbed a small flashlight from the wall and led her into the maintenance tunnels. He knew a way out, an old cargo lift that the scientists didn't use anymore. It was risky, but it was their only chance. The tunnels were narrow, filled with rusted pipes and dripping water. Every sound echoed like thunder. "Quiet," Mark whispered as they moved. "If they hear us, we're done." The girl nodded silently, but luck didn't stay on their side for long. Two guards turned a corner ahead. Their flashlights swept through the darkness. "There!" one shouted. Mark grabbed the girl's hand and ran. The guards fired. Bullets sparked off the pipes, filling the tunnel with noise and smoke. The girl stumbled but kept running. Mark led her down a side path, turning left, then right, through the maze-like tunnels. Finally, they reached the old cargo lift. Mark hit the button. Nothing happened. He hit it again. The lift groaned like an old man waking from sleep. Come on, Mark muttered. The guards' voices echoed closer. The girl touched the lift panel with her glowing fingers. Strange symbols appeared on the screen. The lift roared to life instantly. Mark stared at her. "You can control machines?" She didn't answer. The doors opened and they rushed inside. The lift began to rise slowly, too slowly. The guards reached the tunnel and opened fire again. Bullets slammed into the metal walls as the doors closed. One guard threw something, a small black device that stuck to the lift's door. Mark's eyes widened. "Grenade!" The girl stepped forward. Her eyes glowed brighter. The grenade sparked, sizzled, then died with a small hiss before exploding. The guards cursed loudly as the lift rose out of reach. Inside the lift, Mark stared at her in shock. You shut it down." She leaned weakly against the wall. Small power left. Mark realized she was getting weaker every time she used that strange ability. You need rest, he said softly. She shook her head. Need freedom. The lift finally reached the surface. The doors opened to a stormy night. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the world into silver and black. They stepped out into the open air. For the girl, it was the first time she had seen the sky since her rebirth. She stopped, staring at the dark clouds, the flashes of lightning, the cold rain hitting her face. Mark looked at her. For a moment, she didn't look like someone escaping for her life. She looked like someone tasting freedom for the first time. But the moment didn't last. The sound of engines roared behind them. Black armored trucks pulled up near the building. More soldiers poured out, weapons ready. Mark grabbed her hand again. We have to move. They ran through the rain-soaked field behind the lab. The mud slowed them down, but they kept going. Spotlights cut through the darkness. Shouts echoed as the soldiers spread out. Mark saw an old drainage tunnel ahead. There, he shouted. They slid down the wet grass into the tunnel just as bullets tore through the ground behind them. The tunnel was narrow, but it led into the forest beyond the lab. The soldiers didn't follow right away. The storm and darkness bought them a few precious minutes. Inside the tunnel, Mark finally stopped to catch his breath. The girl leaned against the wall, shaking. Her silver glow was faint now, like a dying candle. Are you okay? Mark asked softly. She nodded slowly. I live. For now. Mark frowned. What did you mean before? About a secret inside you. She looked at him, her eyes tired but fierce. They want map, she whispered. Map to last weapon of my people. A weapon big enough to end empires. Mark felt cold inside. Now he knew why they wanted her alive, and why they would never stop chasing her. The storm slowly faded as night dragged on. The forest outside the lab was dark, wet, and silent except for the sound of dripping water and Mark's heavy breathing. He and the alien girl sat inside an old drainage tunnel, hiding from the soldiers still searching for them. Mark leaned against the cold wall, rainwater dripping from his hair. The girl sat close by, her blanket wrapped tight around her thin shoulders. Her silver glow was faint now, weaker than before. You're freezing, Mark said softly. She shook her head slowly. I'm not cold, just tired. Mark frowned. She looked pale, her breathing uneven. Every time she had used her strange power to stop bullets or control machines, she had grown weaker. He reached into his bag and pulled out a bottle of water and a pack of crackers he had grabbed earlier. Here, he said, handing them to her. She stared at the food like she didn't understand what to do. Eat, Mark said gently. It's safe. Slowly, she took the crackers and bit into one. The taste was strange to her, but she ate silently. For the first time since meeting her, Mark saw her relax a little. Outside the tunnel, searchlights swept across the forest. Distant shouts echoed through the trees. They are still looking, she whispered softly. Mark nodded. Yeah, and they won't stop. Not until they find you. She looked at him with tired eyes. Why you stay? They kill you too. Mark shrugged slightly. Maybe, but I can't just leave you. Why? She asked again, her voice quiet, almost confused. Mark looked at her for a long moment. Finally, he said, because you're not a thing to be sold. You're someone who deserves to live free. That's enough reason for me. She blinked slowly, as if his words were strange but warm. Silence filled the tunnel for a while. Only the sound of rain outside broke it. Finally, she spoke. Name again. Mark smiled faintly. Mark. She nodded slowly. Mark, she repeated softly, like she was learning the shape of the word. He pointed at her. What's your name? She hesitated. Her silver eyes dimmed for a moment. I not remember. Mark's chest tightened. She didn't even know her own name. She had lost everything. Her people, her home, even her identity. Then, Mark said softly, we'll find it together. She looked at him strangely. Why help me so much? Mark chuckled weakly. Maybe because I clean floors for a living. When you spend your life invisible, you start noticing people who are treated the same way. She tilted her head. Invisible means nobody sees you, Mark explained. Nobody cares. That's me. The girl was silent for a moment. Then softly, she said, Now, I see you. Mark froze. Her words were simple, but they hit deep. He smiled faintly. And I see you too. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the forest. Mark stiffened. Soldiers. The girl's eyes glowed faintly again. They, close, she whispered. Mark peered through a crack in the tunnel wall. Flashlights moved between the trees. Voices carried in the wind. They're sweeping the whole forest, Mark muttered. The girl touched the metal wall beside her. Symbols glowed faintly under her fingers. What are you doing? Mark asked. She didn't answer right away. Listening, she said finally. Listening to what? She opened her eyes. Their radios. Their plans. They surround us soon. Mark cursed under his breath. Then we move before they finish the circle. They slipped out of the tunnel and into the wet forest. The ground was muddy. Branches cracked under their feet. Every sound felt too loud in the dark. Quiet, Mark whispered. Stay low. The girl followed silently, her blanket trailing behind her like a ghost. They moved deeper into the trees until Mark found an old hunting cabin half broken by storms. We'll rest here, he said. Inside, the cabin smelled of wood rot and rain, but it was dry. Mark found a lantern and lit it. Warm light filled the small space. The girl sat near the fire Mark made with old wood scraps, her silver eyes reflecting the flames. For the first time since escaping, she spoke more clearly. My people, she began softly, built great weapon to stop the war, but they find it first. Kill us before we use it. Mark listened silently. She touched her chest. Map, inside me. Only I can open weapon. Mark realized the truth. She wasn't just the last of her people. She carried the key to something that could change the galaxy. Then we need to keep you alive, Mark said firmly. She looked at him strangely. Why you care about weapon? It not your war. Mark poked the fire with a stick. Maybe not, but if they get it first, it might become my war. Outside, thunder rumbled again. The girl wrapped the blanket tighter. They come tomorrow, she said softly. With many soldiers. Mark nodded slowly. Then tomorrow we run farther. She looked at him for a long time. Finally, she said softly, I trust you, Mark. And for the first time, she smiled, small, tired, but real. Mark smiled back. Maybe they still had a chance. The first gray light of morning crept across the forest. Mist curled between the trees like ghostly fingers. Mark stood at the broken window of the old cabin, watching the woods in silence. His clothes were wet and muddy. His eyes were heavy with no sleep, but he didn't dare close them. He knew the soldiers would come soon. Behind him, the alien girl sat near the dead fire. Her silver glow was faint now, like a candle burning low. She hadn't spoken much through the night. Mark turned to her. You ready to move? She looked up slowly, eyes tired but steady. Ready. Before they left, Mark found a small piece of chalk on the floor. He crouched near the cabin wall and quickly drew a rough map, the forest, the river nearby, the train tracks beyond it. If we reach the tracks, Mark explained, we can catch a train out of here. They won't expect that. The girl studied the map with serious eyes, though Mark didn't know how much she understood. We keep moving, she said softly. Yeah, Mark nodded. We keep moving. They slipped out of the cabin and into the misty forest. The rain had stopped, but the ground was soft and silent under their feet. Birds hadn't even started singing yet. The world felt waiting. The girl moved slowly but with more strength than before. She didn't stumble like yesterday. Her silver eyes scanned the trees carefully, like she could sense danger before it came. Mark stayed close, carrying the small pack with the last bit of food and water. They reached the river after an hour of walking. The water was cold, rushing fast over rocks. A thin fog hovered above it, making it hard to see the other side. Mark frowned. We'll have to cross. He stepped into the water first. It reached his knees instantly, soaking him in seconds. Careful, he said, holding out his hand. The girl took it without hesitation. The current pushed hard, but they moved slowly, step by step, until they reached the far side. Both of them were dripping wet, but alive. They didn't get far before voices echoed behind them. Tracks! They crossed here, a soldier shouted. Mark cursed under his breath. The girl's eyes glowed faintly. They close. Yeah, I hear them, Mark said. We have to move faster. They ran through the trees, heading for the train tracks. Finally, the metal rails appeared ahead, cutting through the forest like two silver lines. And there, in the distance, the faint rumble of a train. Mark's heart jumped. We can make it! They ran along the tracks, the sound of the train growing louder. But then, the soldiers broke through the trees behind them. Stop! One shouted. Bullets cracked through the air, hitting trees, dirt, anything close. Mark and the girl ducked low, sprinting for the train. Came around the bend. A long cargo train, slow but moving. Mark grabbed the side ladder of one car and climbed fast. Come on! He shouted, holding out his hand. The girl reached for him just as more bullets whizzed past. Mark pulled her up. She stumbled, but he caught her before she fell. The train carried them away as soldiers shouted and cursed on the tracks behind them. Inside the empty cargo car, both of them collapsed against the metal floor, breathing hard. The girl's silver eyes watched the forest disappear slowly behind them. We free? She asked softly. Mark nodded, though his heart still pounded. For now. As the train rattled on, Mark finally spoke. You said there's a weapon, he said. Big enough to end empires? The girl nodded slowly. Buried afar from here. My people hide it before they die. Only I can find it. Mark looked out at the passing hills and rivers. If it's so powerful, maybe we shouldn't let anyone find it. Not even us. The girl was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said softly, maybe weapon not for war. Maybe for protection. For peace. Mark didn't know what to say. He was just a janitor. He had cleaned floors his whole life. Now he was sitting with the last survivor of a dead world, carrying the map to something that could change the galaxy. The girl leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. You save me, she whispered. Mark shook his head. I just didn't want to see them hurt you. She opened her eyes and looked at him. You see me as person, not thing. Mark met her gaze. Because you are a person. For the first time, her tired face softened into a small, real smile. The train rolled on through mountains and valleys, carrying them farther from the lab, from the soldiers, from the past. Neither of them knew what waited ahead, the weapon, the empire, the danger still chasing them. But for now they were free. And for the first time since she opened her eyes in that cold lab, the alien girl felt like she had a future. A new beginning.